like slightly delayed. So I was just like, oh, we are? Oh, yeah, we are.
That threw me off yesterday too. But we are live and we are here with Stella Chung from IGN. And I am personally really excited about this talk because Stella is going to tell us about how to get involved in content creation. And actually, as we just talked to Jared or even Winston, they talked about how YouTube is so important, right? Because it's a place to learn, but it's also a place to showcase yourself and a place to stream. So and that's all content creation. So I am personally interested in getting better about making, YouTube videos and other content. So Stella, please go ahead and introduce yourself and take us away because I am super pumped to hear about it.
So I'm Stella Chung. I go by Parallax Stella on my personal Twitch, but I also work at IGN, and I'm a video producer there.
Okay, that's really short to the point. I like that. What kind of videos? What kind of videos do you produce? Like, just to give us an idea.
So I started out as a gameplay producer. So that was basically me being in charge of, say a new game came out, right? I need to capture the first so many minutes that make sense for that just to showcase it. And then I'm in charge of doing like game help videos, like for Fortnite, like, oh, here are these tips to get these daily challenges done. Or for Apex, which I actually own the Battle Royale version, like area for IGN. So all of the videos that I produce are mostly for Battle Royale stuff, but occasionally I'll like reach out and branch out to different areas. But yeah, basically doing any like help videos, doing tips and tricks. And actually just recently got to do a review. So that was really exciting.
Sounds really fun. Okay, I actually really enjoy review videos. I feel like I don't know if they're for everybody, but I think they're really cool. So and they must be a ton of fun to do, actually.
It's really fun, but it's also very challenging because you have to have so much time in the game. You have to have a good idea of how games in that specific genre work, and you also have to just kind of brace yourself for the inevitable backlash of comments. But it is still really fun because if you get given a review, that means that they trust your opinion about this video game and the genre. And it means a lot. It means that, your coworkers trust you and they trust your opinion and they're genuinely curious about what you have to say. So I really like doing reviews.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Congratulations on getting into that space. I agree that it definitely shows that your coworkers put trust in you. And if a different company reaches out to you to do a review video that you don't work for, then you understand that the industry is putting their trust in you, and that's definitely really exciting. So I just want to take you back a little bit into how you got started into content creation. So what got you excited or even thinking about that area of the industry, and then also how did you get into it?
Okay, so my beginnings, maybe like 7 years ago, I started streaming on Twitch. And I honestly didn't think that was going to be a career, right? Like I did it as a hobby. And then I realized, seriously, like day one, I had this like really crappy mic that was a headset mic and I was talking to people. And I was like, oh, I actually really like talking to people while live. This is actually really fun. So the next day I went to Best Buy and I got like a snowball mic and I kept streaming like ever since then. So it's just this weird thing that like I discovered it was a passion of mine. And because not only can I play games with people, I can also kind of give them my opinions. I can talk to them. I can harbor this like community and I can build from that. And I thought that was really incredible. I didn't really think that was an option for a career, though, like in gaming, starting from content creation, until I started growing more into the industry. I started seeing more people who were streamers or even YouTube creators getting jobs in like the gaming industry. Like they were getting jobs as game devs, maybe PR people. And I was like, oh, maybe there is a field for this. And I was a self-taught editor. And I did all of my own content editing and stuff. So I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I'll try this job that popped up at IGN, and I got the job with my
Awesome.
self-taught skills. So I was like, oh, I'm probably not going to get this, but why not?
Is that so? I don't know if but maybe if you ask your colleagues, I'm just curious. Is that something that happens frequently in the industry, because in a lot of like sort of the older industry, like I'm thinking like banking or legal industry, right? You have to have a professional degree, right? To get into it. But you're a self-taught editor. And is that something that is common in technology and esports and content creation, that people who don't necessarily have a formal education in the area can still get in by just teaching themselves?
I think so. Absolutely. I think that's something that a lot of people ask themselves. Like when I first started looking into jobs in the industry, I was like, okay, well, I should probably go to school for business, or I should probably go into school for marketing, something like that. But the more you look into it, the more it is that like all these skills that you learn with doing your own content, like editing, learning how to even make thumbnails, stuff like that, you are still teaching yourself these key skills. And it's still very valuable because a lot of people don't even know where to start with editing or, anything like that. So I think it's
Mhm.
very valuable. Anything that you do teach yourself, I think that's really important, especially now since a lot of people are trying to figure out ways to go live, for their office space. And they're just like, well, what's OBS? But if you've been streaming, even if you're a small streamer, you're just like, that's a skill that I know and I can teach you. So
That's awesome. And you keep talking about like teaching or like making videos that give people tips and things like that. And I actually recently watched a YouTube video on how to be a popular YouTube video person. And one of the things it said was that videos that teach people something are actually the most popular genre. So it's no surprise that you're mentioning that. So, a lot of times when people think about content creation, they think about the streamer, right? So the person in front of the camera. Are there other aspects to content creation? And how do people get into that if they're not necessarily want to be in front of the camera, but want to be part of that industry?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So thinking about this from my position at IGN, we have so many different people in our actual content team. So we have writers, like news writers. You could write on breaking news that's happening, in the industry, like on Twitter. That's pretty much like where you can see all the news coming out about games. Whenever like a new trailer drops, you can write about that immediately. There's also the role of which I play producer, which doesn't necessarily mean you're always in front of the camera. Like you're directing, you're overseeing a project, right, from beginning to end. And sometimes that doesn't mean that you do all of it. You just kind of direct it. So that's kind of another thing you can do outside of the camera. Um, let me see. Oh, you can also edit. So that's not necessarily you having to be in the content that you're editing, but you could be passed along a project. Like I know this week actually, I'm going to be passed a video preview of a game that's coming out. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll see when I get it. But that's a project that's being passed to me, and I'm just going to be doing the edit. So there's a lot of different things that you can absolutely do outside of the camera if that's outside of your comfort zone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a great overview. I just always like to ask because, you know, I feel like there's just so much always going on in the world. So if you're get interested in the industry, you're not necessarily familiar with what are the different aspects and sort of like branches of the job that you can go into. So that's why I asked Jared, and I'm asking you sort of like what are the tiny little niches that people can get into if they're interested in it. So
Mhm.
so thank you for telling us about some of like the behind the camera work that people can do. But talking about in front of the camera, if people are interested in being like personalities, hosts, MCs, streamers, do you have any advice on getting into it and just and staying in it? Because I feel like a lot of times people feel like, all right, well, if I stream, I have to have like a thing, right? I have to have a gimmick. Maybe I tell jokes, maybe I wear a wig, right? But that's not necessarily true, right? So what advice
Yeah.
do you have for people who want to be the on-camera personalities?
Okay, this is really funny because I get this question a lot on my personal streams when people are like, "Oh, so how did you get started?" I originally, my first idea for YouTube when I wanted to be big on YouTube and stuff, before I started streaming, I was like, "Oh, I'll wear a blue wig and I'll just be this like blue personality." And then I was like, "This is so much work." So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna be me and I'm just gonna see where it goes. And the very first live stream that I did, I was playing Telltale's The Walking Dead, and I was just reacting to the game as I was playing. And I realized that that's something that people really like, just seeing your reactions, your genuine feelings on a game. So I was like, oh, okay. So basically just be me. So I know a lot of people do have like different personalities when they are streaming. Like they have like a performers. I don't know. They have like a performance them, and then they also
Mhm.
have like a real them. And that's perfectly fine. I think that's fine as long as they still stay true to who they are, I think deep down. Um, I think the most important thing to know is people are going to be there for you, no matter like who you are. If you're genuine, I think that's what people care about the most. Like if you're playing a game that people don't like, or if you're in a category that people that you obviously are just playing because you're like, oh, I might get more views this way, they're going to notice the lack of passion. So definitely do what you are most passionate about and people will see that. Like I'm very into the Titanfall games and Apex because I'm a huge nerd for their lore. And whenever I get into discussions about that stuff, people are always like, oh, this is so cool. Like they get very engaged, right? So definitely pursue what you're most passionate about in anything with content creation.
I really like that advice. Just stay true to yourself and just be yourself. And I think that's great advice because that's what people like is authenticity, right? So they tune into the stream to see you and to see your reactions and to see the games that you like. And like you were saying that if you just play a different game just to think you'll get more views that way, it's not going to work out. I like that because it's almost like simplicity is the right answer, right? Just be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Also, another thing that people, sorry, I don't know if I'm
No, go for
talking
it.
over this. Another thing that people don't realize is when a really popular game comes out, if you're a smaller streamer, you might get buried because everyone's playing that. So it's like, it's okay to wait between big releases. Like sometimes you might have that big break where people do find your stream, but also it's okay to take it at your own pace. So,
That's really good advice. So tell us a little bit about your job. The job that you got at IGN as a self-taught editor, which is, the dream. That's really exciting. What are some of the most exciting projects that you've gotten to work on so far?
okay. Well, I have the review that I just recently did, but also I have there was this huge charity project that I wanted to do for St. Jude, and we had just built a new studio where it had three different spaces within this one studio. So I was really excited to utilize all of that, and it was the first project that I had overseen production, like background production, like building it from the ground up and then also hosting it. So it was kind of like I had a lot of help with other producers in the studio, but it was definitely something that I was like, oh my God, how do I make this happen to my vision? And that's where I saw the problem with like, overseeing too much, right? But
Hmm.
at the same time, it was something that I was so passionate about that I was like, no, I want this to be perfect. I want this to be exactly how I envisioned it. And it ended up being exactly that. And this was our first charity stream in a really long time. And we ended up making past our goal. And it was just really fun. It was a really good way to connect with our community. And I had a lot of fun. It was a lot of work though, because I was also hosting while also like being like, hey, where's this person? Where like we need to get the next thing lined up. Oh, this isn't working yet. Okay, cool. I'll hang out and I'll pretend that we're gonna continue the segment. So
So yeah, it sounds like it was exciting because you sort of got to do it from start to finish and also have your hand in almost every aspect, both producing it and hosting it, but also sounds like it was a lot of work. So do you have advice for people in terms of like balancing their passion, like wanting to do everything, but also, making sure they get proper sleep and, proper
oh my
nutrition,
God.
especially for kids as they're still in school, right? They still also have to do
Oh
classes.
yeah. Oh my God, I can't imagine. So I was lucky enough to be out of college and stuff by the time I found that, oh, this is actually my passion. Um, I want to say just take it slow, take it easy. Like even an hour a day of doing something that you're really passionate about is okay. And even if you have to take those days off, that's okay. That's something that I'm still learning myself too. Like you are going to be fine. Your content will be fine if you take a day off. It's not going anywhere. It'll be okay. Just get some sleep. Like seriously, self-care is so important because then that's just going to snowball into something bigger if you don't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Before I had a job in this industry, I definitely, I worked retail, I worked different office jobs, and I definitely found myself most creative during that space. So kids might find themselves most creative when they're at work or when they're at school. And they're just like, oh, this is so boring. But I have all these different ideas. Definitely write those down and save
Mhm.
them. That is still stuff that you're thinking about while you're, that is still a passion and that's still something that you're obviously thinking of creatively. So definitely write that down, save it. But if you don't have time for it, that's okay. Like you can always have it for another day. So
I like it. Pace yourself and be kind to yourself. I like that advice. Very good. Okay, so I think we just have just a few minutes left. So is there anything that you would like to share? Just anything about yourself, about the industry, any advice that you may have for people who are getting into content creation?
Oh man, that's very
Very
broad, but
broad. Yes, very broad. It's basically
yeah.
anything you'd like to say to us.
Yeah, I guess my biggest thing is just definitely pursue what you're most interested in. Like, don't let people say that your passions, like your hobby, is just like, oh well, it's just a hobby. Like, don't let them brush them off. That's definitely something that you're still passionate about. And I think there's something to be said about if you really love something, it shows, right? Like it shows in your efforts, like your the way that you'll research about the topic, the way that you'll like really pour yourself into it. So if you're really passionate about something, definitely showcase that. Um, yeah, and don't be afraid to take breaks. I had another thing and I can't think of it right
While you're thinking, I
now.
actually thought of an interesting question because I think everybody who's ever done anything creative, whether it's streaming or painting, literally anything, you
Mhm.
know that sometimes you hit writer's block, right? Sometimes you
Oh my
just
God.
don't
Yeah.
feel those creative juices flowing, and I think that us creative people, we sort of start panicking through those moments. So, do you have any advice on how to get through those moments, and especially if they're long? Like, what if it's a few days or a few weeks, right? How do you get through that? So that you can come out on the other side and continue with your passion.
Um, so I guess it's just kind of sometimes it's like power through it. Like when I was writing my review, I was like, oh my God, I don't know where to start. So I kind of just like word vomited onto a page. But then with stuff that doesn't require you to finish it quickly, you can take your time with it. Like write a little bit or do a little bit at a time and then come back to it. Like it's okay to not get it all done at once. So
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that's all the time we have. Stella Chung, thank you
mhm.
so much for joining us. This has been amazing and eye opening, and we are ready to go to break.